Perry Mason and the Case That Is 25 Years Old, Chapter 8. The town was small, and as Paul stopped by the local restaurant, he was well aware of the stares from the locals. He wanted to be able to speak to some of the people who had been living there when Ralph Walden had been murdered. He learned that the drive-through restaurant where he was eating his lunch had once been owned by a man named John, and that he still lived in the town. He would want to speak to that man, John. It was thought that he would give a call to John and see if he would be interested in talking to him. If anything could have been heard while running a busy place, anything could be important. John had now retired and was enjoying the free life. However, after 7 years, he still missed the people he had seen every morning. He had heard about the arrival of the young man named Paul Drake and was surprised when he got the call. Oh, yes, he'd be happy to speak to the man. He remembered the day that they found the body and the talk that had gone on for so many months around him. He had not thought about the murder for a while, and today he was going to try to recollect all those memories from so long ago. Paul found the home where John lived and was welcomed in by a man who appeared to be in his early 60s. I was wondering if you wouldn't mind talking with my wife also. She'd like to join in with the conversation. She was and still is my right-hand person, and she also worked with me. We both had several memories of the time, and hopefully we can provide a clue as to what actually happened on that day. Paul was more than appreciative of John and Sue. The two had been a vast memory of a time that would have heard many rumors and local gossip as the police had investigated the murder. He had learned long ago that sometimes rumors and gossip could hold a snippet of truth and could sometimes hold the key to a mystery. John was the first to speak. I remember the day that the police were looking for him. They were looking into what had happened to poor Ralph. Many mornings when I was the only place open in town, he had Ralph would stop at the shop and get a cup of coffee. He didn't come every morning, so when he didn't show up that morning, I didn't think anything of it. It was not until one of my regulars came in and asked me if I had seen him that I was aware that anything was going on. Sue remembered the day well. She had been working the grill as she did every day when she saw 3 police cruisers go down the street. At the time, in the small town, there were only 3 police cruisers, and so when she saw 2 state police cruisers go down the main street, she knew something was going on. It was then that she heard about Ralph and how he was missing. She thought it was odd because she knew it was about the time he should be going home. How long had he been missing? John did hear something from a man that came in every day. Larry had died just before he had sold the place, and he had been a lawyer. He heard something in the courthouse. The word was that the bank manager was retiring with a large sum of money that he didn't have until the sale of the factory where Ralph had worked. He had turned down a loan that could have kept the business going for years to come. But the business had been sold and was now the largest employer in the town. It had gone from a small company of about 25 employees to one that now employed over 200, paying well. However, it was not owned locally, and the personal part of the business had gone downhill because of it. Sue told Paul about a conversation she had with a lady named Millie Drew. Millie had been the bartender on the night that before Ralph had disappeared. Ralph had said that Millie had said that the conversation had been heated between Ralph and a man named Walter Hawks. She had gone out back the barn and went to dump some rubbish. When she came upon them, they were arguing about Sherry, Ralph's wife. She had not mentioned seeing any physical altercation before, though. Paul asked if there was a way he could speak to Millie. Oh, yes, I can give you her number if you wish. Walter lives in the senior housing project now. Perhaps you can go see him there and talk with him also. Paul thanked the couple and headed out to his car. It was time for him to go and visit some of the people who might have more information. His idea had proved to be a good one. The information he had just received had opened the door to more possibilities. Tom and Marcus arrived at the bank later that afternoon. They were greeted by the loan manager of the district. He had gone into the archives and pulled up everything that he had from the local bank so many years ago. Fortunately, it was in microfilm, and as the two men sat down with the arduous task of finding out what had happened when the bank accounts of the loan manager and Fred were going to take days. But as the two officers went over the records, they discovered that the bank manager and Fred had not been the only ones to benefit from the sale of the factory. Among the larger depositors were the members of the select board at the time. For some reason, each member had received a deposit of $10,000 toward the campaign funds. Two of the men were still alive and would have to be investigated further. Sherry received a call from Tom, letting her know that they had reopened Ralph's case. She had not been surprised because she had heard from her friend Debbie that let her know that a man named Paul Drake had arrived in town and was asking a lot of questions. She was very aware of the famous Paul Drake Detective Agency. Finally, she had hope that someone was going to pay for what they had done to poor Ralph and her daughter. She placed a call to the agency because she wanted to meet the young man herself. End of chapter 8.